like saying, right. Christiane, would like to know who you are.
I'm a journalist and a documentary filmmaker from the United States.
And what brought you to Cameroon?
This trip to Cameroon, I'm here to look at the problems of the arrival of large-scale oil palm plantations. Specifically, I'm looking at the case of one American project called Heracles Farms.
You're worried about the environment, or what aspect of it?
Well, I'm interested in several aspects. One is the environment, the other is the social aspect and the labor conditions that are already bad in Cameroon in the agricultural sector, and the contract for this project indicates that they're going to also be bad for this project if it goes through. I'm concerned about the amount of money that should be going to Cameroon that won't be going to Cameroon through this project. I'm also interested in looking at the question of large-scale land acquisitions, and when those land acquisitions are not used for agricultural projects for domestic production but for export. And finally, I'm looking at the private equity side of the story, because now there's a lot of talk in America about investing in Africa. Africa is a great investment destination, but I think we need to look more closely at what kind of investment we're talking about, because not all investment is good for the people who are, receiving the investment.
And what about, as you travel around, you see a lot of Chinese influence in the country?
Yes, I see. Since I've been working in Cameroon over the years, I've seen a growing Chinese influence and Chinese presence. I've seen all the Chinese projects, the Chinese infrastructure projects. I'm seeing increasing numbers of Chinese immigrants in Cameroon. Sometimes surprising things like women cooking beignets on the side of the road with Cameroonian women, and I wonder why are they here doing that?
Unfair competition?
Yeah, well, it seems a strange thing to go to another country to do. But yes, I have seen a noticeable increase in Chinese presence and influence here.
And because the Chinese say there is China bashing, do you fear that some Chinese listening to us may think that you're just doing a China bashing and not just talking objectively?
No, I do think that there is China bashing. I think that a lot of Western media talking about China in Africa, it talks about China as a threat and competition. And I am not interested in China bashing at all. But what I would like to see in African countries is I'd like to see the African governments make the Chinese presence work for them. I'd like to see them leverage Chinese projects in a way that actually really make it a win-win situation and lead to more than... It's great to have a road built, but it's also great to have the technology transfer and to develop the local construction companies. And if the African governments can start doing that with the Chinese investment, then it'll really be good.
You may be asking our African dictators too much, because their first priority is staying in power.
Yes, of course.
And I would think we may not be there at this point.
Unfortunately, probably not, but I think, there are a lot of people who are interested in seeing things move more in that direction. That this is an opportunity that could be, we don't want to see it squandered, right?
And to end, I just want to stress you were the one who came here to ask questions, and I just...
Yes.
Just give me a positive side of your stay in Cameroon, and then by
Oh, you know what?
Africa.
Cameroon, I love Cameroon. I love it. It's my favorite country, and I have a long personal attachment to Cameroon. And it's a beautiful country, and the people are wonderful and funny, and the food is great. I mean, I can't say enough positive things about Cameroon.
You can stretch that to Africa too, because
yes,
you have
yes,
traveled
of
more than
course.
Cameroon.
Yes, of course. Africa in general is. I just feel there's so much potential here.
So, as a white woman who has that advantage, because the vast majority doesn't, to be able to see Africa beyond what the Western media wants the majority to see, Do you think that Africa can impact on the West something?
Oh, definitely. I think Africa has already impacted the West in many ways that's maybe even people kind of ignore. But if you look at a lot of things in America that we take for granted that are actually come from Africa, I mean, culinary traditions, cultural traditions, of course music, but much more than the obvious things. Also, there's science now. For example, there's a Cameroonian professor in Yaoundé who has been researching the bush mango seeds. And Dr. Oz, a famous TV doctor in the U.S., spoke about his
ancestry.
Well, his mango research, and now those ogbono, those seeds.
Ogbono, yes.
Yes, they're selling like.
I know him. I went to his house in Yaoundé.
Yes, so there's also African scientific research that's impacting the U.S. And I think sometimes what happens is that people don't realize that maybe what they're interested in is actually was developed by an African scientist.
Yeah,
or an
and especially when you have a heavy, mega Western media bias.
Yes. But I definitely.
That exists, right?
Yes, totally. But there's definitely Africa is only going to influence the world more and more. I think moving forward. I think it's the future of the world.
We hope so.
I hope so too.
You're talking to a real African who believes that.
Yeah.
You have heard about Egyptology. Have you heard about Sheikh Anta Diop?
Yes, I have.
And you know about that?
Well, I think. Oops, sorry. I just dropped something on your computer. I think the past is really important, and it's very important to study the past, and it's important to take strength from the past. But I also think we can also look at now, and we can look at what's going on now, and we can also celebrate what's happening now and move forward. We don't have to. The past is important, but it's not like the past is the only thing that's great. There's also the present.
You speak very sweet. But let me just say this before we go, because it's not every day we see an American woman who can speak French. So you could just surmise your views on Africa in French, if you may.
Comme je viens de dire, je pense que l'Afrique, quelque part, c'est le futur, et que quand on voit le potentiel en Afrique au niveau la technologie, la créativité, l'énergie humaine, sur tous les fronts, c'est vraiment un continent qui est sur le point de partir dans une direction. Enfin, ça fait longtemps que ça bouge, mais là, on dirait que maintenant, vraiment, ça prend l'élan et que ça part et ça semble être parti vraiment en allant en avant.
Et comme beaucoup de jeunes Africains, on souhaiterait aussi que les dictateurs partent avec.
Bah oui, moi quand je parle aux jeunes, les jeunes gens qui sont les étudiants ou même les gens que je rencontre par mon travail, qui ne sont pas à l'école, ils sont très optimistes et ils croient que les choses vont bouger.
Et dernièrement, présentez-vous en français. Présentez-vous en français.
Je m'appelle Christiane Badgley, je suis journaliste et réalisatrice de documentaires.
Je vous en prie, merci beaucoup et bienvenue au Cameroun.
Merci.
Voilà, et enchanté.
Thank you.